A single father, weighed down by grief and bills, stands on the edge of a life he never asked for. A billionaire heiress, drowning in secrets, stumbles into the one man who has nothing to offer but everything she's been missing. And when their worlds collide, one cold night on the lake, nothing will ever be the same. What do you do when the life you've built is shattered, and love finds you anyway? Follow this unforgettable journey of second chances, where money means nothing, hearts are on the line, and a family is waiting to be born. Don't miss it. Hit subscribe and come with us. The first light of dawn barely touches the water when Thomas opens his eyes. His daughter Lily is wrapped around him like a vine, her small fist clutching his worn flannel shirt. 7 years old, and already she sleeps like she's afraid someone might leave. He knows that feeling. The house creaks around them, settling into another day in their small lakeside town where everyone knows everyone's business and everyone pretends not to see the cracks showing. Thomas slips from a bed without waking her. His bare feet find the cold kitchen tiles, and he reaches for the coffee tin with hands that tell stories. These hands have built engines, fixed what others threw away, held his wife as she took her last breath. Rough as sandpaper, gentle as prayer. The coffee brews in a chipped mug, the same one Sarah used to drink from, and he finds himself glancing at her photograph on the windowsill. Her smile still stops his heart. "We're doing okay, love," he whispers to the empty kitchen. It's a lie, but he tells it anyway. Some lies are necessary. Some lies are all that hold you together when the world keeps spinning and you're standing still. The workshop calls to him through the back door. It smells like everything he's ever known. Motor oil thick as molasses, sawdust that catches the morning light, and underneath it all, memory. Sarah's red scarf still hangs by the door where she left it that last winter morning. He can't bring himself to move it. It's faded now, but still carries the ghost of her perfume. Lily appears in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Bright-eyed and tender, she holds a drawing in her small hands. "Look, Daddy." The crayon figures are simple but perfect. Him, her, and a woman with yellow hair watching stars from their roof. You, me, and Mama watching the stars. His throat tightens. Children see things adults forget to look for. On the kitchen counter, bills pile up like autumn leaves. The eviction notice stares at him with its bold red letters, but he turns it face down. Not in front of Lily. Never in front of Lily. She's lost enough already. Outside, the wind sharpens over the lake. It cuts through the morning air with a promise of change, of something coming that he can't quite name. The locals have been talking all week about the billionaire's yacht moored at the marina. Sleek and white as a ghost ship, it sits in the water like money always sits, separate, untouchable, casting shadows on everything around it. His old friend Javier calls before noon. The marina manager's voice carries desperation wrapped in casual words. "Thomas, I need you to help fix the yacht's engine. No one else will touch it." The pause stretches long. "Please, man, I'm begging you." Thomas knows why the other mechanics won't take the job. Rich people bring complications. They bring expectations and lawyers and the kind of trouble that follows you home. But the bills on his counter speak louder than his caution. On the yacht, Elena Moretti stares at the water through windows that cost more than most houses. The reclusive billionaire heiress drinks expensive champagne like it's water, trying to drown something that won't stay down. Her children, twins 5 years old, Max and Sophie, play under the cold watch of a nanny who treats them like expensive furniture. The woman's eyes are ice, her voice sharp as broken glass. Elena's world is all marble and mahogany, crystal and chrome. But wealth can't buy back what she's lost. It can't fill the empty spaces where love used to live. She drinks to forget, but forgetting is a luxury even money can't purchase. That night, the storm hits like God's own fury. Wind screams across the lake, and the yacht rocks like a cradle in rough hands. Elena, drunk and heartbroken, stumbles onto the deck. The champagne has made her reckless, made her forget that water doesn't care about bank accounts. Her foot slips on the wet deck, and suddenly she's falling falling into the freezing embrace of the lake. Thomas, called last minute to check the engine, sees her fall. Time slows. His body moves before his mind catches up. Without thinking, without hesitation, he dives in. The cold stabs his skin like 1,000 needles. The lake pulls at him like desperate hands, trying to drag him down into its dark heart. He grabs her, feeling her body limp and heavy in his arms. The current fights him, wants to take them both, but Thomas has fought stronger things than water. He has fought grief and loneliness and the terrible weight of raising a child alone. He fights his way back to the boat, his lungs burning, his heart hammering against his ribs. On deck, Lily appears like a small angel. She had snuck along with her father, and now she wraps Elena in a blanket with the tenderness only children possess. Her small hands smooth the wet hair from Elena's face, and she whispers words of comfort that cut through the storm. Elena's eyes flutter open to the sight of a child's worried face. For a moment, she forgets where she is, who she is. There's only this child's kindness, this man's strength, this moment of pure humanity in her gilded cage of loneliness. Thomas performs CPR, his hands shaking, his voice rough with fear. "Come on, don't you quit." He breathes life back into her lungs, pumps warmth back into her heart. When she coughs, gasping and dazed, he feels something break open in his chest. Relief, recognition, the terrible beauty of saving someone who is drowning. The twins appear, eyes wide with fear. Sophie runs to her mother, but Max hides behind the nanny's legs. Children know when their world shifts, even when they don't understand why. Thomas stays until the paramedics come, then quietly leaves, drenched and shaking. His heart pounds with the rhythm of almost loss, of life hanging by threads thin as spider silk. He doesn't expect gratitude. He doesn't expect anything at all. That night, Lily curls into him like a question mark. "You're a hero, Daddy." But Thomas only feels the ache of survival, the weight of continuing when everything tells you to stop. Heroes are for storybooks. He's just a man who couldn't let someone drown. The lake sleeps quietly now, keeping its secrets, holding its ghosts. Tomorrow will bring new storms, new chances to sink or swim. But tonight, they're all still breathing. Tonight, that's enough. Morning comes like a slap. The quiet lakeside town that Thomas knows explodes into chaos overnight. Reporters swarm like locusts, helicopters circle overhead like mechanical vultures, and tabloids scream headlines that reduce a moment of human decency to cheap entertainment. Heiress saved by local mechanic. The words feel wrong in his mouth, taste bitter as old coffee. Elena's world erupts in ways Thomas can't imagine. Her lawyer, Richard, a man with teeth like a shark and a voice like silk-wrapped steel, demands she control the narrative. Her estranged father, the magnate Victor Moretti, flies in from New York with his entourage of suits and solutions. The old man's presence fills rooms like expensive cologne, overwhelming and impossible to ignore. Elena feels raw, stripped bare. Her children cling to her with unusual need, sensing the storm even if they can't name it. Max hides behind her legs when strangers approach, while Sophie wraps her small arms around Elena's neck and won't let go. The twins have learned early that their mother's world is unpredictable, that safety is temporary. She finds Thomas at his garage, slipping him a check with numbers that could change his life. Her handwriting is elegant, practiced, the kind taught in expensive schools. But Thomas looks at the paper like it might burn him. He folds it carefully, hands it back without a word. The gesture says everything his voice cannot. "You don't understand," Elena starts, but Thomas's quiet dignity stops her mid-sentence. Some things can't be bought. Some debts can't be paid with money. Lily appears from behind a stack of tires, holding a dandelion that's gone to seed. The white fluff dances in the morning breeze as she offers it to Elena with the solemnity of a child presenting treasure. "For your pocket, so you remember to smile." The words are simple, but they hit Elena like a physical blow. When was the last time someone wanted her to smile? When was the last time she had? Touched in ways she didn't know she could still feel, Elena invites them for dinner as thanks. Her voice trembles slightly, rusty from disuse. But Thomas declines, wary as a wild animal that's been cornered before. Rich people bring complications. They bring expectations that poor people can't afford to meet. The marina calls before noon. No one will touch the yacht except Thomas. The other mechanics have scattered like leaves in a strong wind, afraid of the attention, afraid of the scrutiny that follows money like a shadow. Thomas sighs, running his hand through his hair. He reluctantly agrees because bills don't pay themselves and pride doesn't put food on the table. At home, he and Lily make chocolate pancakes, laughing over burned edges. Her giggles fill the small kitchen like music, and for a moment, the world feels manageable again. She flips one pancake so high it sticks to the ceiling, and they both stare at it, amazed. These are the moments that matter, the ordinary magic that keeps them going. Meanwhile, Elena sits in her marble fortress, watching old videos of herself with the twins before their father's death. The woman on the screen is younger, lighter, her laugh genuine and unguarded. She weeps watching it, unseen by anyone but the expensive art on her walls. Grief is a luxury she can only afford in private. That night, Thomas works late on the yacht, his hands steady even as his mind races. The twins sneak to the engine room, curious as cats, drawn by the sound of actual work being done in their sterile world. Lily teaches them to draw smiley faces on dusty windows, her small finger tracing hope in the grime. Their laughter echoes through the hall like church bells. Elena watches from the doorway, a lump rising in her throat. The mechanic's girl has cracked her children's shell in minutes, done what expensive therapists couldn't do in months. There's magic in Lily's simple presence, in her assumption that everyone deserves kindness. Elena asks Thomas about his wife, the question tumbling out before she can stop it. His eyes darken like storm clouds, and for a moment, she sees the depth of his loss. She's still here, in everything we do. The words are soft, reverent, and Elena feels something shift in her chest. She's forgotten what it feels like to be loved so completely that death can't diminish it. Outside their bubble, rumors swirl like poison in the town's bloodstream. Did Elena stage the accident for attention? Is the grieving heiress really just another spoiled rich girl playing games? The whispers follow Thomas wherever he goes, and he feels the weight of judgment in every glance. His landlord pressures him with the casual cruelty of someone who's never missed a meal. Pay or leave. Simple as that. The eviction notice on his counter seems to grow larger each day, more demanding, more real. Elena shows up at the garage disheveled, her perfect facade cracking. She offers a contract, full-time yacht maintenance. The words spill out in a rush, as if she's afraid he'll disappear if she doesn't speak fast enough. Her hair is mussed, her makeup smeared, and she's never looked more human. Thomas hesitates. Every instinct screams caution, warns him about the dangers of getting too close to her world. But Lily tugs his sleeve, her small hand warm against his skin. It's okay to say yes sometimes, Daddy. The wisdom of children cuts through his fear like sunlight through clouds. He accepts. The word feels strange in his mouth, like a language he's forgotten how to speak. Elena smiles, and it's the first real one in years. Not the practiced smile of charity galas or board meetings, but something genuine and grateful and achingly fragile. Back at the mansion, Elena argues with Victor, her voice rising in the marble halls. They're just people. They're kind. The words sound foreign even to her, as if kindness is a concept she's translating from another language. Victor's voice is granite, unforgiving. Kindness doesn't build empires. His eyes hold the cold calculation of a man who's traded his humanity for success and never looked back. He sees Thomas and Lily as problems to be solved, not people to be cherished. But Elena has tasted something different now. She's seen what love looks like when it's not performed for cameras or calculated for gain. She's seen a man who would dive into dark water for a stranger, a child who offers dandelions like they're diamonds. The lake continues its eternal rhythm outside their windows, holding secrets and promises in equal measure. Change is coming, whether they're ready or not. Some currents are too strong to fight, some tides too powerful to resist. And sometimes, if you're brave enough, you stop fighting the current and let it carry you somewhere new. Days turn into weeks like pages in a book you can't put down. Thomas and Lily become fixtures at the estate, their presence softening the sharp edges of marble and money. The mansion, once cold as a museum, begins to feel like something resembling home. Lily's laughter echoes through halls that have known only whispers for too long. The twins adore Lily with the desperate intensity of children who found something real in a world of artificial smiles. She teaches them to catch fireflies in mason jars, to make wishes on dandelion seeds, to believe in magic that doesn't cost anything. Elena finds herself seeking Thomas's steady presence like a plant turns toward sunlight, drawn to something she can't name but desperately needs. Over coffee on the dock, they share memories that taste like tears and hope. Lost spouses become real again in their quiet words. Silent nights stretch between them, understood without explanation. Aching mornings feel less impossible when shared with someone who knows that particular brand of loneliness. The water laps against the wooden posts like a heartbeat, steady and eternal. Elena shows Thomas her mother's old piano, untouched since her death 15 years ago. The keys are yellowed with age, the bench worn smooth by countless hours of practice. Dust motes dance in the afternoon light that streams through tall windows. Her mother's sheet music still sits on the stand, waiting for fingers that will never return. Lily plinks at the keys with the fearless joy of a child who doesn't know she's supposed to be intimidated by expensive things. Her laughter fills the emptiness that has lived in this room for too long. The sound breaks something open in Elena's chest, something that's been locked away since the funeral. Music returns to the house, imperfect and beautiful and alive. Thomas fixes the mansion's old pickup truck, his hands coaxing life from rusted metal and worn parts. The engine purrs like a satisfied cat when he's done. Elena offers payment, but he refuses with the quiet dignity that's become his signature. Some things can't be bought, some gestures can't be reduced to transactions. Elena offers lessons in gratitude instead, awkward and vulnerable and achingly sincere. She's forgotten how to say thank you without writing a check, how to show appreciation without opening her wallet. Thomas watches her struggle with the simple words, and his heart breaks a little for the girl she must have been before money complicated everything. Paparazzi catch photos of them laughing, Thomas lifting Lily onto his shoulders while Elena claps and the twins chase bubbles across the perfectly manicured lawn. The images are innocent, joyful, full of the kind of happiness that makes tabloids hungry. They spin headlines that poison the moment, Cinderella story or scandal. The words turn their emerging friendship into something tawdry and calculated. Victor demands Elena distance herself, his voice cutting through the warm air like ice. You're ruining the family name. The Moretti legacy matters more than her happiness, more than her children's laughter, more than the first real connection she's felt in years. Elena's heart pounds with the familiar rhythm of fear and compliance. She's always obeyed, always bent to his will like a tree in a storm. Meanwhile, Thomas battles pride and fear in equal measure. Can he ever belong in this world of crystal and privilege? Will he always be the charity case, the rescue project, the entertainment for bored rich people? The questions eat at him like acid, corroding the peace he's found in Elena's presence. Lily, wise beyond her 7 years, watches him wrestle with demons she can't name. She's sad, Daddy, like you were. The words are simple, but they cut straight to the truth. Children see what adults work so hard to hide. They recognize pain in all its forms, know that money can't heal everything. The twins draw a picture with careful concentration, their small tongues poking out in focus. When they present it to Elena, her breath catches. Our family, they've labeled it, and their in crayon stick figures are Thomas and Lily standing beside Elena and themselves. The drawing is crooked, imperfect, and more valuable than any Picasso on the walls. Elena breaks down, finally, the careful composure cracking like ice in spring. She confesses to Thomas what she's never admitted to anyone: "I don't know how to be enough for them." The words taste like failure and fear, like every inadequacy she's carried since becoming a mother. Tears stream down her face, and for once, she doesn't care about mascara or appearances. He takes her hands, his calloused skin rough against her softness. The contrast tells the story of their different worlds, but also of their shared humanity. "You already are," he says, and the words are warm honey over her wounded heart. In his eyes, she sees herself reflected not as a billionaire or a headline, but as a woman trying her best in impossible circumstances. That night, they dance barefoot in the kitchen while dinner simmers on the stove. There's no music except the rhythm of their hearts, no audience except the children who giggle and join in. Elena's feet, used to designer heels and marble floors, feel strange and wonderful against the cool tiles. Thomas holds her like she's precious, but not fragile, like she might break, but probably won't. Victor watches from the shadows, his fury a living thing. This is not the Moretti way. This is not how empires are maintained or legacies preserved. Love is a luxury his family can't afford, a weakness that will destroy everything he's built. His jaw clenches as he watches his daughter discover joy in the arms of a man who fixes things with his hands. The next day, reporters corner Thomas outside the grocery store, their cameras flashing like lightning. The questions come fast and sharp. Are you a gold digger? Are you using Elena for money? What's your game? The words hit him like physical blows, each one designed to strip away his dignity and reduce him to a stereotype they can understand. Lily cries in the car afterward, her small body shaking with sobs she can't control. "Why are they mean, Daddy?" The question hangs in the air like smoke, impossible to answer without destroying her faith in fairness and kindness. Thomas has no words for the cruelty of strangers, no explanation for why people hurt others for entertainment. The glass castle Elena lives in is cracking, letting in both light and storm. Change is coming whether they're ready or not. Some walls are built to protect, but others are prisons disguised as safety. The question is whether they'll have the courage to step through the cracks into something real, something dangerous, something that might actually be worth fighting for. Love, after all, is the most expensive thing in the world. And sometimes if you're very brave or very foolish, you discover it's also the only thing that's truly free. Victor arrives at the garage like a storm cloud, his expensive suit out of place among the oil stains and honest tools. He offers Thomas money with the casual cruelty of someone who's never been told no. The briefcase clicks open, revealing more cash than Thomas has seen in his lifetime. "Quiet, clean, final," Victor says, each word dropping like a stone into still water. Thomas refuses without hesitation, and the sound of Victor's rage fills the small space like breaking glass. The old man's face contorts with fury that money can't solve this problem, that his power has limits, that a simple mechanic would dare stand against him. The air crackles with tension as two worlds collide in a garage that smells of sawdust and dreams. Elena's lawyer warns her over crystal glasses and expensive wine. The words taste bitter in her mouth. If she pursues this, she risks custody battles that will tear her children apart. The legal system doesn't care about love or laughter or the way Thomas makes her feel alive again. It cares about wealth and stability and the kind of appearances that courtrooms understand. Thomas's garage is vandalized that night, windows shattered like his hopes. "Stay in your lane" is sprayed in red across the door, the color of blood and warning. The words drip down the metal like tears, each letter a violence against everything he's built. His sanctuary, his livelihood, his pride, all reduced to broken glass and bitter paint. Thomas falls to his knees among the wreckage, his fists buried in his hair. The sound that escapes him is primal, the cry of a man pushed beyond his breaking point. Lily appears like an angel in the doorway, her small arms wrapping around his shaking shoulders. She doesn't understand the politics or the power games, but she knows her father is hurting, and that's enough. Elena offers him refuge, her voice breaking with the weight of what she's asking. Her mansion has room for 1,000 broken dreams, space for him to heal and rebuild. But Thomas declines with the stubborn dignity of a man who's learned that running away never solves anything. He wants to stand his ground, to prove that ordinary people can't be moved by money and threats. A community fundraiser emerges from the ashes of his destroyed garage. Neighbors rally with the fierce loyalty of small-town people who've been pushed too far. They bring hammers and paint, coffee and determination. Old Mrs. Henderson from the diner organizes shifts. The high school kids show up with music and muscles. The whole town seems to understand that this isn't just about Thomas, it's about whether ordinary people still matter. Elena brings the twins to hammer nails and paint walls, their small hands leaving fingerprints on everything they touch. They share hot cocoa from thermos bottles, the liquid warming them from inside out. The children bond over shared purpose, their laughter rising above the sound of rebuilding. Innocence triumphs over class, love over legacy, hope over fear. That night, as the last volunteer leaves, Thomas and Elena kiss for the first time. It's hesitant, trembling, real in ways that money can't buy. Their lips meet in the doorway of the rebuilt garage, surrounded by the smell of fresh paint and possibility. The kiss tastes like courage and coffee, like taking chances on things that might not last but are worth the risk anyway. Victor serves legal papers the next morning, each page a weapon aimed at Elena's heart. A bid for custody of the twins, legal language that reduces her children to chess pieces in a game she's never learned to play. The papers shake in her hands like leaves in a storm, each word a threat to everything she holds dear. Elena crumbles, her carefully constructed composure finally shattering completely. "He's always controlled everything," she whispers, her voice raw with years of submission and fear. The admission tastes like failure and childhood, like every time she bent to his will because it was easier than fighting. Thomas holds her, his arms strong and steady around her shaking body. He whispers words that feel like promises, "Not this time." His voice carries the weight of a man who's lost everything and found the strength to keep going. He won't let Victor win, won't let money triumph over love, won't let the children pay for adult games. The children overhear, their young faces serious with understanding beyond their years. They draw closer to both Thomas and Elena, forming a circle of protection around each other. Max takes Sophie's hand. Lily puts her arm around Elena's waist. They're too young to understand custody battles, but they know when their world is threatened. A court date looms like a thunderstorm on the horizon. The calendar marks the day that will decide whether love or law wins, whether family is defined by blood or bonds. Elena stares at the red circle around the date, her stomach churning with anticipation and dread. Thomas confronts Victor in the marble halls of the mansion, his work boots echoing against floors that cost more than most houses. "You can't buy their love," he says, each word a declaration of war. His voice is steady, sure, backed by the knowledge that some things are beyond the reach of money. Victor smirks with the cold satisfaction of a man who's never lost a war. "But I can buy you gone," he replies, and the words carry the weight of absolute power. He's broken bigger men than Thomas, destroyed stronger dreams than this little romance between his daughter and a mechanic. Thomas's landlord evicts him that same day. The note is cold and final. They pack by candlelight when the electricity is cut, their belongings looking small and sad in cardboard boxes. Lily helps with the quiet efficiency of a child who's learned that homes are temporary, that love is the only thing you can really count on. Elena shows up at midnight with a truck, her hair wild from the wind and her eyes bright with determination. "Come home with us," she says, and the words hang in the air like a lifeline. Her voice carries the weight of a woman who's finally decided to fight for what matters. Lily looks up at Thomas, her small face serious in the darkness. "We already are home, Daddy," she says, and the words hit him like a revelation. Home isn't a place or a building or a deed in a filing cabinet. Home is the people who love you, who fight for you, who refuse to let you face the darkness alone. The lake watches from beyond the windows, eternal and patient. It has seen families broken and rebuilt, has witnessed the endless cycle of loss and love. Tonight, it reflects the lights of the mansion where 4 children and 2 adults huddle together, creating something new from the wreckage of their separate sorrows. Tomorrow will bring lawyers and courtrooms and the cold machinery of the law. But tonight, they're together. Tonight, they're home. Elena and Thomas face a media frenzy that feels like walking through fire. Cameras flash like lightning, questions fly like bullets, and the courthouse steps become a battlefield where love meets the machinery of public opinion. Reporters shout over each other, each voice trying to reduce their story to sound bites and scandal. The noise is overwhelming, a cacophony of judgment and curiosity that follows them like a hungry beast. At the mansion, far from the chaos, the children draw a family mural on the kitchen wall. Their small hands move with the fierce concentration of artists creating something precious. Crayon stick figures hold hands across the pristine white paint, defying the perfection that has defined this house for too long. Max draws himself tall and proud. Sophie adds flowers everywhere, and Lily creates a sun with a face that's smiling down on all of them. Victor sues for full custody with the cold precision of a man who's never lost a war. The legal papers cite Elena's reckless lifestyle, as if love were a crime, as if choosing happiness over empire were evidence of insanity. Each allegation cuts like a blade, designed to reduce her to a caricature of an unfit mother who's forgotten her place in the world. Thomas is called to testify, and the courtroom becomes a confessional where his reputation, his past, everything he's ever been or done is laid bare under fluorescent lights. His hands shake as he takes the oath, knowing that every word will be weighed and measured against the wealth and power of the Moretti name. The lawyers circle him like vultures, looking for weakness, for anything that might prove he's not worthy of the love he's found. Elena stands by him publicly, her first act of rebellion in a lifetime of obedience. She holds his hand as they walk through the courthouse, ignoring the cameras and the whispers and the shocked faces of society, people who've never seen her choose love over legacy. Her grip is firm, her chin lifted with the kind of courage that comes from finally knowing who you are. Lily holds Sophie's hand as they watch the adults fight for love from the courthouse benches. Their small fingers intertwine like promises, children understanding instinctively that this battle is about more than custody papers and legal briefs. It's about whether families can be chosen, whether love can triumph over law, whether ordinary people can stand against the machinery of power and win. Neighbors, marina workers, townspeople show up at the hearing in quiet support. They fill the benches with their calloused hands and honest faces, a wall of ordinary people who've decided that Thomas and Elena's love is worth defending. Mrs. Henderson from the diner sits in the front row, her gray hair perfect and her eyes fierce. The mechanic who works across town nods at Thomas, solidarity in a simple gesture. The judge asks Thomas why he stayed, and his voice cracks like ice breaking in spring. Because love isn't safe, but it's worth it. The words hang in the air like truth distilled to its essence, and something shifts in the courtroom. Love isn't safe. It requires courage and sacrifice and the willingness to risk everything for someone else's happiness. But it's worth it. It's always worth it. Elena's lawyer exposes Victor's manipulations with the methodical precision of someone who's done their homework. Phone records, financial threats, the systematic destruction of anyone who's ever crossed the Moretti patriarch. The courtroom listens in stunned silence as decades of control are laid bare, pattern after pattern of a man who's mistaken fear for respect. Elena confesses in court with the raw honesty of someone who's got nothing left to lose. I don't want an empire. I want a family. Her voice breaks on the words, years of suffocation finally finding release. The admission tastes like freedom and fear, like choosing the unknown over the comfortable cage she's lived in for so long. Outside, reporters swarm like wasps around spilled honey. Thomas shields Lily with his body, his arms creating a fortress around her small frame. Elena shields the twins with the fierce protectiveness of a mother who's finally learned to fight. They move as one unit, heads down, protecting what matters most from the feeding frenzy of public attention. They retreat to the lake, escaping to the one place where cameras can't follow and headlines can't touch them. No photographers, no questions, just water and sky and the eternal rhythm of waves against the shore. The lake accepts them without judgment, wraps them in the silence they've been craving since this whole ordeal began. On the shore, they skip stones with the desperate playfulness of people who need to remember how to laugh. The smooth rocks dance across the water's surface, each bounce a small victory against the gravity of their situation. Elena's stone skips 7 times, and the children cheer like she's performed magic. Laughter breaks through the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. Elena asks Thomas softly, her voice barely audible above the lapping waves, "Will you stay with us?" The question carries the weight of everything she's risked, everything she's lost, everything she hopes to build from the ashes of her old life. Her eyes search his face for the answer that will determine whether this leap of faith was worth it. Thomas breathes out years of grief, the sound escaping him like air from a punctured tire. "If you'll have me." The words are simple, but they carry the weight of a man who's learned that love requires constant choosing, daily decisions to stay and fight and build something beautiful together. Lily tucks her hand into Sophie's with the casual intimacy of sisters. Max leans on Thomas's arm, testing the waters of trust with the careful hope of a child who's learned that adults sometimes disappoint. The physical connections speak louder than words, small gestures that redefine what family means. Elena's face crumples, and she lets herself cry in front of them for the first time. The tears are not elegant or contained, but raw and honest and healing. She spent so long being perfect, being composed, being what others expected her to be. Now she's just Elena, just a woman who's fought for love and won, even if the victory comes with scars. That night, they sit at the kitchen table, hands touching across bowls of soup. The simple meal tastes like celebration, like communion, like the beginning of something new. Their fingers find each other across the worn wood, creating a circle of connection that no court ruling can break. Lily draws another picture, her tongue poking out in concentration. "Our family, for real this time," she announces, and the words feel like a benediction. The drawing is more confident now, the figures more detailed, the sun brighter. Hope has a way of improving the art. Thomas whispers at Sarah's photo on his nightstand, his voice soft in the darkness. "Thank you for bringing me here." The words are a prayer, a recognition that love doesn't end with death, but transforms, becomes something that guides the living toward new possibilities. Sarah's smile seems to approve, seems to whisper back that love multiplies when shared, that hearts can hold more than we ever imagined. The lake sleeps peacefully outside their windows, holding their secrets and their dreams in its dark depths. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new battles, new tests of their resolve. But tonight, they're together. Tonight, they're family. Tonight, love has won. The mansion, once echoing with emptiness like a beautiful tomb, fills with noise that sounds like life itself. Kids' laughter bounces off marble walls that have forgotten how to hold joy. Thomas's tools scatter across surfaces that once knew only crystal and china. The scent of fresh bread drifts through halls that have breathed nothing but perfection for too long. The house is waking up, stretching after a long sleep, remembering what it was built for. Elena watches from the doorway, her heart swelling at the ordinary magic unfolding in rooms that cost more than most people's dreams. A child's sock on the Persian rug, crayon marks on the mahogany table, the controlled chaos of a home where people actually live instead of just existing. She's never seen anything more beautiful than this gentle destruction of her perfect prison. Thomas sets up a workbench in the garage, his hands sure and steady as he creates a space for himself in this world of marble and money. The The smell of sawdust mingles with the lingering scent of expensive cars, creating something new, something that speaks of possibility. Lily paints a Dad's Corner sign with the meticulous care of a 7-year-old artist, each letter wobbly, but filled with love. Elena joins them, awkward at first, her movements careful, and measured like someone learning a new language. Then paint smudges her silk shirt, and she laughs with the surprised delight of a woman who's forgotten that messes can be beautiful. The sound echoes through the garage, bright and unguarded, the kind of laughter that makes everything else seem possible. At night, they make hot cocoa in the kitchen that's never known such simple pleasures. The children gather in mismatched pajamas, their faces glowing in the warm light as they listen to Thomas's bedtime stories. His voice weaves tales of dragons and princesses, of ordinary people who do extraordinary things, of love that conquers everything it touches. Elena reads Lily a book, her voice trembling with emotions she can't name. "No one's ever called me Mama before," she whispers, and the words hang in the air like a confession. Lily looks up with the serious expression of a child who understands that some gifts are precious beyond measure. "Can I keep calling you that?" she asks, and Elena's heart breaks open with joy. They begin small rituals that feel like promises. Saturday pancakes with faces made from blueberries and syrup. Sunday walks by the lake where they feed ducks and skip stones and pretend the outside world doesn't exist. Piano evenings where Elena's fingers remember melodies she thought were lost forever, while the children curl up around the bench like cats seeking warmth. Victor's absence grows louder than his presence ever was. The twins begin calling Thomas Dad by accident, the words slipping out in moments of excitement or need. Each time it happens, something shifts in the house, as if the very walls are accepting this new configuration of love. Elena struggles with guilt that tastes like betrayal. Can she love again without erasing her late husband's memory? The question follows her through marble halls and sleepless nights, a whisper that threatens to poison the happiness she's found. She stares at his photograph, searching his frozen smile for permission she's not sure she deserves. Thomas finds her by the piano, her fingers silent on the keys. He touches her shoulder with the gentleness of someone who understands that healing happens in layers. "Love doesn't erase. It expands," he says, and the words settle into her bones like truth. The heart isn't a finite space, but an endless room that grows to hold whatever it's given. Lily finds an old wedding photo tucked behind Elena's mirror, her small fingers tracing the faces of people she's never met but somehow knows. She whispers to Elena with the wisdom that only children possess, "He's happy you're smiling now." The words are simple, but they carry the weight of absolution, of permission to live fully in the present without abandoning the past. A charity gala approaches like a storm on the horizon. Elena is expected to attend with Victor, to play the role of dutiful daughter, to pretend that nothing has changed in their carefully constructed world. The invitation sits on her dresser like a challenge, gold lettering on cream paper that feels like chains. Thomas offers to step back, to make things easier for her, to disappear into the shadows where society expects him to belong. Elena takes his hand, her grip firm with newfound resolve. "You're part of this too," she says, and the words feel like a declaration of war against everything she's been taught about her place in the world. They shop for clothes in stores that smell like money and exclusion. Thomas stands uncomfortable in a suit that costs more than his old monthly rent, tugging at the collar like it's trying to strangle him. Lily twirls in a dress that makes her feel like a princess, her laughter echoing through the boutique like music. Elena's stylist fusses over her with the desperate energy of someone whose job depends on perfection. She shoos them away, choosing a simple gown that speaks of elegance without screaming wealth. She's done performing for other people's expectations, done hiding behind the armor of designer labels and perfect hair. At the gala, whispers swirl around them as they enter as a family. The ballroom falls silent for a moment, as if the very air is holding its breath. Cameras flash like lightning, capturing the moment when Elena Moretti chose love over legacy, when she walked into her father's world with her chosen family and dared anyone to object. Victor pulls Elena aside, his grip tight on her arm, his voice a hiss of fury and embarrassment. "You're embarrassing yourself," he says, each word designed to cut, to reduce her back to the obedient daughter who never questioned his authority. The familiar shame rises in her throat like bile. Elena squares her shoulders, feeling the strength that comes from knowing who you are and what you're willing to fight for. "I've never been prouder," she says, and the words taste like freedom. She's embarrassing herself by choosing happiness? By refusing to apologize for love? Let them whisper. Let them stare. Let them judge. Thomas watches from across the room, his eyes never leaving her face. Pride and protectiveness shine in his gaze, the look of a man who's found something worth fighting for and refuses to let it go. He's uncomfortable in this world of crystal and pretense, but he's here because she needs him, because love sometimes requires us to stand in places that don't fit. That night, they danced slowly under kitchen lights, no music except the rhythm of their hearts. The ballroom was beautiful, but this is real. Her bare feet on cool tiles, his calloused hands gentle on her waist, the sound of their breathing in the quiet house. This is what wealth can't buy, what power can't command, what love looks like when it's stripped of everything but truth. The children sleep peacefully upstairs, their dreams filled with the security of being wanted, of being chosen, of being home. The mansion has finally learned its purpose, has finally understood that houses are just buildings until they're filled with the irreplaceable chaos of family. Outside, the lake reflects the lights of their windows, holding their happiness in its dark depths like a secret worth keeping. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new battles, new tests of their resolve. But tonight, they're dancing in the kitchen, creating their own music, writing their own story of what it means to choose love over everything else the world says matters. Some revolutions happen in ballrooms with grand gestures and public declarations. Others happen in kitchens with bare feet and beating hearts and the quiet courage to keep dancing when the music stops. The morning sun hadn't even fully kissed the horizon when Elena's phone began its relentless buzzing. Headlines screamed across every screen, every newspaper, every gossip blog that mattered, and many that didn't. Heiress in love with mechanic. The words felt like shards of glass against her chest. She'd known this moment would come, hadn't she? The fairy tale was always going to collide with reality. By 8 o'clock, they were surrounded. Paparazzi swarmed their quiet sanctuary like locusts, cameras clicking, voices shouting questions that felt more like accusations. The children pressed themselves against the windows, their small faces pale with confusion and fear. Lily's voice trembled as she asked Thomas why all those people were yelling. He pulled her close, his jaw tight with a protective fury Elena had never seen before. The boardroom felt arctic when Elena finally arrived at her office. Her directors sat like vultures around that polished mahogany table, their expressions carved from stone. Their ultimatum cut through the air with surgical precision. Sell her shares. Step down. Face removal. The company her grandfather had built, the legacy she'd fought to protect, now felt like a noose around her neck. That evening, Thomas found her standing by the kitchen window, staring out at nothing. His voice was so gentle it almost broke her. "I could leave," he said, the words heavy with sacrifice. "I could take the kids and go. Protect you from all this." She whirled around, her eyes blazing through unshed tears. "Don't you dare," she whispered, grabbing his shirt, pulling him close. "Don't you dare leave me." Later, as Elena sat hunched over legal documents, her hands shaking from exhaustion, Lily appeared beside her chair. The little girl's fingers traced patterns on Elena's arm as she spoke. "My daddy was sad for so long," Lily said, her voice carrying wisdom far beyond her years. "You make him laugh. I like it when he laughs." Elena's heart swelled and shattered simultaneously. But Victor wasn't finished. The emergency custody filing arrived like a dagger through the heart. Elena's instability, he called it. Her inability to provide a suitable environment. The words blurred together as her world tilted sideways. Thomas found her collapsed on the bathroom floor, the legal papers scattered around her like autumn leaves. The stress consumed her. Fainting spells struck without warning. Sleep became a stranger, replaced by endless nights of pacing and worry. Her body rebelled against the pressure, her mind fracturing under the weight of protecting everyone she loved. One night, Thomas carried her to bed, her body limp with exhaustion. His fingers brushed the hair from her face with such tenderness that tears finally came. The twins must have sensed her breaking point. They crawled into bed beside her, their small bodies warm against her sides, their arms wrapping around her like tiny anchors. Lily whispered to Thomas across Elena's sleeping form, "I think we're her glue." The words hung in the darkness, profound and heartbreaking. Elena's lawyer brought salvation wrapped in shocking revelation. Victor's debts ran deeper than anyone had imagined. His motives weren't about the children at all, but about the money he hoped to control through them. The truth felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The press conference loomed like a mountain she had to climb. Elena's hands trembled as she approached the podium, cameras flashing like lightning, voices shouting questions that felt like attacks. But then Thomas was beside her, his presence solid and grounding. One touch of his hand against her back, and the world steadied. She lifted her chin, found her voice. "I am stepping away," she announced, her words carrying across the crowd. Not for fear, but for love. The reporters erupted, questions flying like bullets, but Thomas lifted Lily onto his shoulders. The little girl waved, her smile innocent and pure, and something magical happened. The crowd softened. Smiles spread from person to person like ripples on water. Home felt different when they returned. Neighbors appeared at their door, arms full of casseroles and flowers, their faces kind with quiet support. The mansion gates, locked for so long, finally opened. Children's laughter echoed across the lawn for the first time in years. The house breathed again. Elena stood by the lake that evening, watching the sun paint the water gold. The words came from somewhere deep inside her soul. "I didn't know home could feel like this," she whispered to the gathering dusk. Thomas's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. His voice rumbled against her ear, warm and sure and full of promise. "We're just getting started," he murmured. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Elena believed in tomorrow. The therapist's office smelled of lavender and old books, a sanctuary where Elena finally allowed herself to unravel. Week after week, she peeled back layers of grief she'd buried so deep she'd forgotten they existed. Her first husband's death, the way it had hollowed her out and left her stumbling through years of emptiness. Her father's cold hands, his expectations that felt like chains around her soul. Each session felt like surgery without anesthesia, necessary but brutal. Thomas found himself staring at his reflection in the marina's restroom mirror, doubt creeping through his chest like ice water. Am I just a stand-in? The question haunted him during sleepless nights. Was he simply filling the shape of what Elena thought she needed? A replacement for the life she'd lost? His hands gripped the porcelain sink until his knuckles went white. The twins' school invitation arrived on bright yellow paper, cheerful and innocent. Family Day, it proclaimed in bold, colorful letters. Thomas held the paper like it might explode, his heart racing with uncertainty. What was his place in this? He wasn't their father, not really. Not legally. Not yet. The hesitation felt like betrayal, but the fear was real and sharp. Lily must have sensed the tension crackling through the house. She appeared in the kitchen one morning, her small face serious with purpose. "We're having a picnic," she announced, as if she were planning a military operation. "Everyone, today." Elena and Thomas exchanged glances over her head, amazed by this little girl's wisdom, her ability to see exactly what they all needed. Under the old oak tree by the lake, they spread a checkered blanket that had seen better days. Sandwiches cut into triangles, lemonade that was too sweet, potato chips that crunched between their teeth. The messiness of it all felt like freedom. Elena laughed until her sides ached, watching Thomas try to catch grapes in his mouth while the children dissolved into giggles. But it was during the thunderstorm that everything shifted. The sky opened up like a wound, rain pounding against the windows with violent intensity. Max, usually so brave, pressed himself against Thomas's chest, his small body shaking with each crack of thunder. Thomas's voice became a lifeline, teaching him to count breaths, to find calm in the chaos. "In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, he whispered, his hand steady on Max's back. Sophie, who had lived in silence for so long, surprised them all. Her school essay arrived home with a gold star, her teacher's praise scrawled in red ink. "My new dad fixes hearts, not just boats," she had written. The words hit Thomas like a physical blow, tears he didn't know he was holding spilling down his cheeks. Victor's final assault came swift and merciless. The yacht's sail, the threats of financial ruin, the systematic destruction of everything Elena had built. She stood in their living room, her voice hollow with defeat. "I'll walk away from it all," she whispered. "We'll start over with nothing." Thomas crossed the room in 3 strides, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "You don't need to burn your past to build your future," he said, his voice fierce with conviction. The modest lake house they found wasn't grand. It didn't have marble floors or crystal chandeliers. But it had windows that caught the morning light just right, and a kitchen where they could all fit around the table. It had a dock where Thomas could teach the children to fish, and a garden where Elena could plant flowers she'd actually tend herself. The goodbye party on the yacht felt like a funeral and a celebration all at once. Elena moved through the rooms she'd once called home, touching surfaces that held memories like ghosts. When Lily began to sing, her voice sweet and clear, Elena recognized the melody immediately. Sarah's favorite song, the one she'd hummed while cooking dinner, while folding laundry, while rocking her babies to sleep. The tears came then, washing away years of carefully constructed walls. That night, Thomas knelt beside Sarah's grave under a canopy of stars. The marble headstone felt cold beneath his palm as he whispered words he never thought he'd say. "Thank you for sending me to them." The gratitude felt overwhelming, this gift of second chances he'd never believed he deserved. Elena's footsteps were soft on the grass behind him, her presence a comfort he'd learned to treasure. The rose she placed on the grave was white, pristine, a symbol of respect and new beginnings. When the children joined them, their small hands linking together, Thomas felt something shift in the universe. For hearts beating as one, connected by love that defied logic and circumstance. The lake shimmered under moonlight as they walked home, silver ripples spreading outward like promises. A new chapter was beginning, one they would write together with paint-stained fingers and laughter that echoed through empty rooms. They argued over colors, Elena insisting on sage green, while Thomas lobbied for warm yellow. They painted until dawn, their clothes streaked with possibility. Victor left town as quietly as he'd arrived, his defeat written in the slump of his shoulders. There was no grand confrontation, no dramatic farewell. Just the relief of watching his car disappear down the road, taking his bitterness with him. The final box arrived on a Tuesday morning, wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. Elena's mother's piano music, yellowed with age, but still beautiful. Her fingers traced the familiar notes, remembering hands that had once guided hers across the keys. A bridge between past and present, between who she'd been and who she was becoming. As Elena placed the sheet music on the piano bench, she felt the fault lines in her heart finally beginning to heal. The lake house embraced them like an old friend welcoming them home. Smaller than the mansion, yes, but every corner pulsed with life and possibility. Laughter echoed off the wooden walls, bouncing from room to room like music. Elena found herself pausing in doorways, just listening to the symphony of their new life unfolding. Thomas's workshop took shape in the converted garage, his tools finding new homes on pegboard walls. The familiar smell of sawdust and oil mixed with the fresh scent of lake air drifting through open windows. Elena would bring him coffee in the afternoons, watching his hands work magic on pieces of wood that seemed to come alive under his touch. In the garden, Elena and Lily knelt side by side, their fingers dark with rich earth. The little girl's concentration was absolute as she pressed tiny seeds into the soil, her tongue poking out slightly in determination. "Will they really grow?" Lily asked, her voice filled with wonder. Elena smiled, remembering her own childhood questions about miracles and patience. The memory trees were planted on a crisp autumn morning when the air tasted of possibility. Two saplings, delicate but strong, their roots intertwining beneath the surface. One for Sarah, Thomas's beloved wife, who had blessed him with love and loss in equal measure. One for Elena's mother, whose piano music still sang through the house on quiet evenings. The twins patted soil around the base of each tree with reverent hands. Elena's board made one final attempt to reclaim her, their offer arriving on expensive letterhead with numbers that might have once tempted her. She read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer where dreams go to rest. Her answer was simple, final. She had chosen love over legacy, and that choice felt like coming home to herself. The new dock rose from the water, like a prayer answered. Thomas's old friends arrived with beer and hammers, their easy camaraderie filling the air with jokes and the rhythmic sound of construction. Children ran barefoot across the lawn, their shrieks of delight mixing with the lap of waves against the shore. The community dinner stretched across their backyard like a harvest feast from another era. Tables borrowed from the church, mismatched chairs, casseroles that carried the love of women who understood that food was a language unto itself. Elena moved among her guests, her heart full to bursting with the warmth of belonging. The mansion's transformation felt like redemption. Once a symbol of her isolation, it would become an arts center where children could paint their dreams and adults could remember how to create beauty. The irony wasn't lost on Elena, the way her prison had become someone else's freedom. Victor's letter arrived on a Tuesday, thin and sharp as a blade. His words were few, cold as winter wind. "You've chosen your path." Elena read it once, then folded it away with a smile that held no bitterness, only certainty. "Yes," she whispered to the empty kitchen. "I have." The fishing lessons became a ritual of patience and presence. Thomas sat between the twins on the dock, his voice gentle as he taught them to read the water's moods. The fish were secondary to the quiet conversations that bloomed between them, the way trust grew like morning mist rising from the lake. Lily and Sophie's dance was pure joy made visible. They had been practicing for weeks, their movements a blend of coordination and chaos that only children could master. Elena and Thomas watched from the porch swing, their hands entwined, hearts swelling with pride and love, and the profound privilege of witnessing these small miracles. The proposal came on a rainy night when the world felt soft and intimate. Thomas knelt beside the fireplace, his hands trembling slightly as he presented not a diamond, but a simple ring of silver, worn smooth by time and intention. Elena's laughter mingled with her tears as she nodded yes before he could finish his carefully rehearsed words. The children's timing was perfect, as if they'd been waiting just outside the door. They rushed in like a small hurricane, piling into their parents' arms with shouts of joy and questions about cake and flowers, and whether they could be flower girls and ring bearers all at once. The wedding invitations were works of art, each one hand-painted with the same devotion Elena had once reserved for board meetings. Watercolor flowers bloomed across cardstock, the children's fingerprints adding unexpected beauty to the borders. Each invitation carried not just information but joy itself, sealed with wax and hope. The day before the wedding, Thomas made one final pilgrimage to his old garage. The place smelled of memories and motor oil, of a life that had been full and good but was now gently giving way to something new. He touched the workbench where he'd once imagined growing old alone, grateful for the grace that had led him to a different ending. Elena sat at the piano as evening lights slanted through the windows, her fingers finding the melody she would play tomorrow. The The song wasn't complicated, but it carried the weight of all their tomorrows in its simple notes. Her mother's music merged with her own heart, creating something entirely new. The lake glowed like liquid gold at sunset, lanterns bobbing gently in the evening breeze. Everything was ready, everything was perfect, everything was exactly as it should be. But it was Max's question that nearly undid them all. The boy appeared at Thomas's elbow as he secured the last of the dock decorations, his face serious with the weight of 8-year-old concerns. "Do you think my real dad would like you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Thomas knelt immediately, his heart climbing into his throat. The question hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. "I hope so, buddy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I really hope so." Dawn broke soft and golden over the lake, painting the water in shades of amber and rose. The air carried the promise of perfect weather, a gentle breeze that whispered through the trees like a blessing. Elena stood at her bedroom window, watching the sun climb higher, feeling something she hadn't experienced in years. Pure, uncomplicated joy. The ceremony would be simple, exactly as they dreamed. Under the old oak tree, where they'd shared their first picnic, where the children had played and laughed and slowly learned to trust again. Rose petals scattered across the grass like confetti, family and friends forming a circle of love around them. No grand cathedral, no marble altars. Just the earth beneath their feet and the sky above their heads. Elena's dress was pale blue, the color of morning mist over water. She had chosen it not for tradition, but for the way it made her feel, flowing and free and utterly herself. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, catching the light like spun silk. When she looked in the mirror, she saw not the polished businesswoman she'd once been, but a woman in love, radiant with happiness. Thomas stood beneath the oak tree, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted his tie. He wore a simple gray suit, nothing fancy, but the way he looked at Elena as she approached made him the most handsome man in the world. Lily walked beside him, her small hand tucked into his, both of them sharing the honor of this moment. The twins flanked Elena, their fingers intertwined with hers, their faces bright with excitement. Max had insisted on wearing his father's watch, a small token of the man who couldn't be there, but whose love lived on in his son's smile. Sophie carried a bouquet of wildflowers they'd picked together that morning, their stems wrapped in ribbon from Elena's mother's sewing box. Javier stood before them, his voice thick with emotion as he spoke of love and second chances, of families that are chosen as much as born. His words carried the weight of friendship and the privilege of witnessing miracles. The lake lapped gently against the shore, nature's own accompaniment to their vows. Elena's voice was clear and strong as she spoke her truth. "You taught me what love looks like when no one's watching," she said, her eyes never leaving Thomas's face. "You showed me that the smallest gestures carry the greatest weight, that fixing broken things is its own form of prayer." Thomas's vows came from somewhere deep in his soul, words he'd never imagined he would speak again. "I promise to fix what matters," he said, his voice rough with emotion, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The ring slid onto Elena's finger, like it had always belonged there. When the rings were exchanged, when the words were spoken, when the kiss was shared, the cheer that rose from their small gathering carried across the water like church bells. The children squealed with delight, their joy infectious and pure, reminding everyone present that this was about more than two people falling in love. This was about a family being born. The reception spilled across the backyard in waves of laughter and music. Neighbors danced to old records spinning on a borrowed turntable, the scratchy sound of vinyl adding warmth to the celebration. The lake reflected the fairy lights strung between trees, creating a mirror world of twinkling stars below. Elena danced with Lily, the little girl's feet balanced on hers, both of them spinning until they were dizzy with laughter. Thomas swayed with Sophie, her head resting against his chest, while Max clung to his side, unwilling to let go of this perfect moment. The music wrapped around them like a blanket, soft and familiar, and exactly right. The cake was homemade, 3 layers of vanilla sponge with buttercream roses that Sophie had helped pipe. It leaned slightly to one side, perfectly imperfect, frosting smudged by eager little fingers. When they cut it together, Elena's hand over Thomas's on the knife, crumbs scattered across the lace tablecloth like scattered dreams come true. Under the fairy lights, as the evening deepened into something magical, Elena kissed Thomas like it was their first and last all at once. The kiss held everything they'd been through, everything they'd survived, everything they hoped for. Around them, the celebration continued, but for that moment, they were alone in their bubble of perfect love. The night quieted gradually, guests drifting home with full hearts and sleepy smiles. Elena and Thomas found themselves on the dock, their feet dangling in the cool water, watching the moon paint silver paths across the lake. The silence was comfortable, full of contentment and promise. Lily appeared between them like a small ghost, her flower girl dress wrinkled from dancing, her hair escaping its careful braids. She curled up against Elena's side, her voice drowsy with exhaustion and happiness. "This is my favorite day ever," she murmured, her words barely audible above the gentle lapping of water. Elena's hand found Thomas's brow, brushing away a lock of hair that had fallen across his forehead. The gesture was tender, intimate, full of the quiet love that would sustain them through all their tomorrows. "Mine too," she whispered, her voice carrying the wonder of someone who had found home in the most unexpected place. Inside the house, taped to the refrigerator with crooked strips of Scotch tape, a child's drawing captured everything that mattered. 5 stick figures holding hands under a big, smiling sun. The family they'd become, rendered in crayon with all the artistry of pure love. Elena placed her hand on Thomas's chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and sure beneath her palm. The rhythm was familiar now, the sound of safety and belonging. He kissed her forehead, his lips warm against her skin, his voice a whisper that carried the weight of forever. "We're home," he said, and Elena knew he was right. They were home, finally and completely home. Months drifted by like autumn leaves settling on still water, each day bringing them deeper into the rhythm of their new life. School runs became sacred rituals, Elena's hand finding Thomas's on the steering wheel as they navigated morning traffic and sleepy children. Shared breakfasts around the kitchen table turned into symphonies of clinking spoons and gentle teasing, the children's laughter mixing with the aroma of coffee and fresh pancakes. Art projects sprawled across every surface, glitter embedded in the carpet, paint fingerprints on the walls like tiny signatures of joy. The arts center bloomed to life in the bones of Elena's old mansion, its marble halls now echoing with children's voices and the scratch of charcoal on paper. At the dedication ceremony, Elena stood before the bronze plaque bearing her mother's name, her voice steady as she spoke of second chances and the way love can transform even the coldest spaces. The mansion that had once been her prison now pulsed with creativity and hope. Thomas's workshop became a pilgrimage site for the brokenhearted and the nostalgic. They brought him more than engines to repair. Heirlooms passed down through generations, rocking chairs that had soothed countless babies to sleep, music boxes that had once played lullabies to little girls now grown old. His hands worked magic on these treasures, understanding that he was mending more than wood and metal. He was preserving memories, honoring the sacred weight of things that matter. The evening Max asked to visit his father's grave. The request hung in the air like a prayer. Thomas's response was quiet, immediate, his understanding running deeper than words. "I'd be honored to come with you," he said, and Elena watched from the kitchen doorway, her heart swelling with pride for this man who knew exactly how to love her children. At the cemetery, Max's small hand found Thomas's larger one, their fingers intertwining as they walked between the headstones. The little boat Max had built in the workshop was crude but perfect, its wooden hull sanded smooth by 8-year-old hands. He placed it carefully on the granite headstone, his voice barely a whisper, as he told his father about his new family. Elena watched from beneath the cemetery's old oak tree, her heart cracking open with gratitude for the grace that had brought them all together. Later, as they drove home through the gathering dusk, Lily's question floated from the back seat like a dandelion seed on the wind. "Do you think Mama sees us?" she asked, her voice small with wonder. Thomas caught her eyes in the rearview mirror, his smile soft as morning light. "I think she smiles every time you do," he said, and Elena felt tears prick her eyes at the tenderness in his voice. Sophie's artistic offerings became bridges between worlds. She drew pictures for both fathers, her crayon portraits capturing the essence of love in stick figures and rainbow skies. One father she had known, whose memory lived in her quiet moments. One father she had come to trust, whose presence filled their home with laughter and safety. But in the deep hours of night, when the house settled into silence, Thomas lay awake wrestling with doubts that clawed at his chest. "Am I doing enough for all of them?" He whispered to the darkness, his voice raw with the weight of responsibility he'd never imagined carrying. Elena's response came swift and sure, her breath warm against his ear. "You gave us more than enough," she whispered, her words carrying the conviction of someone who had lived through both emptiness and abundance. "You gave us back ourselves." Their sunrise coffees became communion, fingers brushing over chipped mugs that had become precious through daily use. Laughter warmed the kitchen better than any heater, their voices mingling with the sound of children stirring upstairs, the promise of another day unfolding like a gift. Javier, now family in all the ways that mattered, helped them plan the community celebration. Music spilled across the lawn, lanterns bobbed between trees, and memories were shared like treasured heirlooms passed from hand to hand. The evening felt like a harvest festival of hearts, everyone gathering to celebrate not just Elena and Thomas, but the miracle of chosen family. Elena's old board members arrived with curiosity and perhaps a touch of condescension, expecting to find her diminished by her choices. Instead, they found a woman transformed, her skin glowing with contentment, her laughter genuine and free. She moved through the party like someone who had finally learned to inhabit her own life. Victor's gift arrived without fanfare, 2 simple bracelets wrapped in tissue paper, no note included. Elena held them in her palm, feeling their weight, understanding the complicated love they represented. The choice between honesty and protection felt like standing at a crossroads, but she chose truth, always truth. When they sat the children down to explain, Elena's voice was gentle but clear. Victor's love had been flawed but once real, twisted by circumstances and choices that had nothing to do with them. The children absorbed this information with the remarkable grace that only the young possess, their capacity for understanding far exceeding their years. The secret project in the garage had been brewing for weeks, whispered conferences and suppressed giggles, paint-stained clothes hidden in the laundry basket. On a rainy afternoon, when the world felt soft and intimate, they unveiled their masterpiece. A giant mural of their blended family, painted with shaky, joyful strokes that captured love better than any professional artist ever could. Elena and Thomas stood before the painting, tears streaming down their faces, arms wrapped around the children who had created this beautiful testimony to their journey. The mural showed them all holding hands under a painted sun, their smiles crooked but radiant, their love visible in every brushstroke. That night, as rain drummed against the windows and fire crackled in the hearth, Thomas spoke the words that had been building in his chest for months. "This," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "this is the life I never knew I wanted." Elena curled deeper into his embrace, understanding that sometimes the most profound truths come not from grand gestures, but from quiet moments when the heart finally learns to be still. The echo of yesterday had become the foundation of today, and today was exactly where they belonged. The anniversary of Sarah's passing approached like a storm cloud on the horizon, and Thomas felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the way grief could still ambush him when he least expected it. He stood at the kitchen window, watching the lake ripple in the morning light, bracing himself for the wave of sorrow that would surely come. But Elena's voice, gentle and understanding, changed everything. "Let's honor her with a family dinner," she suggested, her hand finding his shoulder. A seat left open at the table, a place for her in our hearts. There was no jealousy in her voice, no competition with a ghost. Only quiet reverence for the woman who had given Thomas the capacity to love again. Together, they cooked Sarah's favorite meal, the kitchen filling with the aromas of garlic and herbs, comfort food that carried memories in every bite. Lily stirred the sauce with careful concentration, her tongue poking out slightly as she focused on getting it just right. Sophie set the table with the good china, placing each piece with the solemnity of someone who understood this was sacred work. Max folded napkins into precise triangles, his small hands working with the patience Thomas had taught him. As they worked, Thomas shared stories about Sarah that had been locked away in his heart for too long. Her laugh that could fill a room, her stubborn streak that had both frustrated and delighted him, her love for stargazing that had turned their backyard into an observatory of dreams. Elena listened, holding his hand, her eyes soft with understanding. She wasn't threatened by these memories. She was honored to be their keeper. The candle flickered beside Sarah's photo, casting dancing shadows across her smile. Lily placed wildflowers there, her voice a whisper that carried the weight of pure innocence. "We love you," she said, and Thomas felt something shift in his chest, a loosening of the grief that had held him captive for so long. After dinner, they migrated to the porch as dusk settled over the lake like a gentle blanket. The water shimmered with reflected stars, each point of light a memory, a blessing, a promise. The children constructed a blanket fort with the efficiency of architects, their giggles and whispered secrets floating through the evening air like fireflies. Thomas leaned his head on Elena's shoulder, his eyes closed, his heart fuller than he'd ever imagined possible. The weight of his head against her felt like surrender, like trust, like coming home to himself. Elena's voice was barely audible above the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. "I was so afraid to be just me," she said, her words carrying the vulnerability of someone who had spent years wearing masks. "But you let me." The admission hung between them, like a bridge finally completed. His smile was soft, his eyes wet with tears that held no sadness, only gratitude. "You were always enough," he whispered, and she felt the truth of it settle into her bones like sunlight after a long winter. Inside the house, the children's laughter drifted out like music, the soundtrack of a life well lived. The moon rose silver and calm, as if blessing the house below, sanctifying the love that had grown within its walls. The evening felt touched by grace, by the kind of peace that comes only to those who have walked through darkness and emerged whole. Javier arrived with cocoa, his presence as natural as breathing, family in all the ways that mattered. They toasted to family, to love, to second chances that felt like miracles. The mugs clinked together softly, a gentle percussion that harmonized with the night sounds around them. The letter from Victor arrived on ordinary paper, addressed not to Elena, but to the twins. His words were few, his apology imperfect but real, the fumbling attempt of a man who had finally glimpsed the damage he'd caused. The children read it together, their faces serious, their hearts somehow wise enough to understand that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, but about choosing to carry love instead of anger. They chose to keep the letter, not as a gift to be treasured, but as the closing of a chapter that had held them too long. The past finally became past, not because it was forgotten, but because it no longer had the power to define their future. That night, Elena played the piano with fingers that had found their certainty again. Her voice was clear as she sang the lullaby her mother had once sung to her, the melody weaving through the house like a blessing. Thomas listened from a living room, Lily asleep on his chest, her breathing soft and steady. Sophie and Max leaned against him, their bodies warm with trust and contentment. The music stopped, but the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of hearts beating in harmony, of breaths mingling in the peaceful rhythm of a family at rest. Home filled every crack they had once feared would stay empty forever, every corner that had once echoed with loneliness, now humming with love. The morning sun poured through the kitchen windows like liquid gold, illuminating the breakfast table where 5 mismatched mugs waited to be filled. Behind them, the children's mural glowed softly, their painted family frozen in eternal joy, hands linked across the wall in a promise that would never fade. And then, in a moment that would be remembered long after the coffee grew cold, 5 hands reached across the table to hold each other. Elena's fingers intertwined with Thomas's, the children's small hands completing the circle, forming a connection that was stronger than blood, deeper than circumstance, more enduring than time itself. The sunlight danced across their faces, highlighting the tears of joy that sparkled in their eyes, the smiles that spoke of battles won and peace finally found. This was their table, their family, their forever. A table for 5, where love was the only language that mattered, where second chances had become first choices, where the echo of yesterday had become the promise of all their tomorrows. Sometimes the family we long for isn't the one we imagined, it's the one we build, hand by trembling hand, through late-night talks, quiet forgiveness, and choosing love over fear. Would you have opened your heart like Elena? Would you have stood your ground like Thomas, even when pride said walk away? What is wealth, if not the arms we fall into when the world crumbles, the voices that call us home at dusk? This isn't a story about yachts or mansions. It's about the courage to be seen, the grace to begin again, and the unshakable truth that love, real love, is the only thing worth fighting for. If this story touched your heart, remember to like, share, and follow for more. You never know who might need this reminder today.